noticed that in some Spanish-speaking countries, particularly in the Caribbean, people pronounce the R sound in Spanish like an L?
Puerto Rico.
So saying Puerto Rico instead of Puerto Rico, or when people say vamos a comer instead of vamos a comer. Well, that replacing of the R sound to an L actually has a name, and it's called landismo. Landismo is basically a phonological change where you put a different consonant for the final implosive R of a word in Spanish, aka comer with an L sound instead of comer, or Puerto Rico instead of Puerto Rico. This is an accent that's very persistent in places like the Caribbean, particularly in Cuba, and obviously Puerto Rico. You can notice this. And where does it come from? People agree on pretty much two things. Number one, Andaluces / people from Canary Islands. As always, the Caribbean was one of the first places to be taken over by Spain, meaning that they were the first ones to receive the Spanish that was being spoken at the time. And that version of Spanish came from Andalusia and from Canary Islands. Because of their physical isolation as islands, the way that these accents developed or stayed the same over time is actually really interesting when you compare it to other countries in Latin America. There are historical reports that at this time in Andalusia, people were already partaking in this phenomenon of either replacing that strong R sound at the end of words with different consonants like L, or kind of just omitting them altogether. If you talk to somebody nowadays from Andalusia, you definitely notice that the R sound at the end of words, that's that strong R, tends to be omitted or a little bit less strong than in other parts of the country. Another reason that people theorize as to why accents like in Puerto Rico and Cuba maintain this R to L sound so strongly is because of West African languages. Obviously, the presence of the slave trade in the Caribbean was very strong, meaning that the influence of West African languages had an effect on the way that Spanish was spoken as well. And in many West African languages, the R sound doesn't exist, meaning that it was replaced with an L, which is an easier sound to pronounce if that doesn't exist in your language. Some people also theorize that Taino language, the native language of Puerto Rico, had an effect as well on their accent. Other people say it had more of an effect on their dialect, like the actual words that they spoke. But as a whole, you can mostly chalk up the R to L phenomenon on a combination of West African languages combined with Andalusia. The more you know, mi gente.